In between Caracas and Punto Fijo City, a teenage girl's imagination traveled as much as her parents drove her into unfamiliarity within her home country. Although she moved often to different locations, she felt intimate with the people of Venezuela. However, the bonds she formed were left behind in the year of 2017 when she had to begin a new life in Lebanon. Rayan Mansour is a Lebanese Venezuelan writer, artist, human rights advocate, and educator. Rayan was born and raised in Venezuela and lived there until she moved to Lebanon 4 years ago. From a very early age, she would spend nights locked up in her room, drawing, reading, painting, and writing journal entries and stories. This episode features her work and personal stories interacting with my own. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're seen in Lebanon as the Latina, right? So why is
Yeah.
that? Why is that?
Okay, so when I lived in Venezuela, my parents tried their best to like foment the Lebanese culture at home, and they taught me the language and the religion and the culture. We ate the Lebanese food. We were always in this Lebanese community. Even there, like my friends were all Lebanese. I have some friends who are Venezuelan, like purely, but many of them are Arabs too. And I felt like I was the Arab there, and Venezuelan people saw me as their Arab because my mom wears the hijab, and we
Hijab.
go out, and they were like, so you're not Venezuelan? I'm like, yeah, I am. I was born here. I speak your language. I do what you do. They're like, no, you're Arab. And that's part of my identity crisis thing. And then when I came here, it was like going to Hogwarts or something like that. So fantastic, because Lebanon was something that I only heard when I was a child, stories, and I knew that it existed, but I never experienced it firsthand. So when I came here, I met all these people and got to go to all these places and talk to them and stuff like that. And they were like, "So you're Arabic? It sounds weird." I have an accent, and I'm bad at writing and reading Arabic. Like I speak fluently, but when it comes to writing, reading, it's just I'm the worst. So people are like, "Oh, so you're not really Lebanese? You're Latina," and I'm like, "No, I'm Arab." So it's hard when people ask you like, "Where are you from?" It's just the hardest question ever. Um,
So what would you
I deal with it
say?
right now,
What
but
would you
it's like,
say
yeah,
if they asked you that? What would you say? So would your
I
answer
never know
change?
what to say. I never know what to say. It's just crazy because sometimes when I say that I'm Venezuelan, people are like, "No, but your blood, like your DNA, it's actually Lebanese, so you're not." You're not Venezuelan because you was born there. I'm like, but it says so in my passport. And they're like, okay, but you're not. And then if I say I'm Lebanese, and they'll say, but you never lived here, you lived all your life there and you were raised there. So um at the end, I consider that Venezuela is my home, my childhood, everything. I was raised there, so I cannot ignore it. I love Lebanon because it has given me so much too, and it's in my blood too. So I just tell them the whole story. If they want to hear, it's okay. They don't want to hear, they can just ignore it. But it's a hard question, still is.
I honestly go
Yeah,
through something similar because since I'm Venezuelan as well, and when I first came across your
yeah,
profile, you have a emoji of a Lebanese flag, and I was like, whoa, she's Lebanese. Yes, I'm getting her on because I'm gonna be able to talk about culture and also her work, which is what I like to interconnect, right? But then you said you were Venezuelan, and I was like, oh my, this always that kind of happens to me so much. It's like all of a sudden these interconnections. It's like, of course you're
we're
Venezuelan.
everywhere.
Like, yeah, and it's just kind of we are. And it's like, I talk to my Venezuelan friends here, which I actually aren't that close to many. I used to be, but when I kind of grew away from some. But I recently talked to a Venezuelan friend, and she was saying, like, you, Valerie, you want to leave the United States and go see a lot of Latin America and, go to other places like Europe and stuff and just travel around because you didn't live in Venezuela for that long. You lived in Venezuela since you were 8, and that's when you moved, and then that's why like you're so into like maybe going back and see how it is, or like the American culture. And it's like I considered it. I'm like I never heard of that. Like what? Like I in general just love like global like affairs, like global topics, international, being an internationalist and everything. And I'm like, how does that? No, I don't think that's it. But then I thought about it and I was like, yeah, it's true. I mean, it's true that I wasn't there for that long, but it's like, can that play a part in me being so interested in Venezuela, kind of like seeing it as this mysterious thing. And then whenever I see a Venezuelan,
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, let's talk to one. Cause I don't really know much about like I know about my people on paper and I know about my people on because of my friends and like my family, but do I really
Different
know?
just going there and being there.
Yeah, it's just kind of
Yeah.
like exactly because I feel kind of the same like you because like maybe they see me, the Venezuelans who come here a little later, like maybe in like they came here in their teenage years or like, even recently, like they'll see me as like kind of like Americanized. And also how we were speaking about your grandparents, they moved to Latin America. Um
Yeah.
so people don't know this, but I don't know if you know, but did you know that Arabs and people from like Lebanon, Syria, they have a huge presence in Venezuela. Like they are,
Yeah.
yeah,
There are a lot.
their Latin America
There's
has the
so many.
largest number of Arabs outside of the Middle East. I don't think people know that.
Mhm.
There's like
Actually, I don't think you know this too, but there are
um
Lebanese outside the country more than there are here. Can you
what do you
believe that?
no
Like
way?
there are more Lebanese outside Lebanon than there is in Lebanon because as I told you, Lebanon is such a small country and so many people like travel, they moved out. So it just the people who are still here are just people who are either like too young or too old. Like you see a lot of old people. Um, but the actual generations are being like born outside of the country, which is kind of sad, you know.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of Lebanese outside. They're all Lebanese everywhere, just like the
Yeah.
Venezuelan people were everywhere.
It's incredible how many people I talk to about this. And like I'm Venezuelan too. And I can't wrap my head around it because I'm asking so many questions. It's like, why? And it's you know what I mean? But like
Yeah,
in general, like, going back to so you moved to Lebanon in 2017 after being in Venezuela. So how we talked about, they have a similar socioeconomic situation right now. There's hyperinflation, um, electricity shortages, and water is cut off for like the majority of the day, I guess. I'm
yeah,
yeah. And it's just,
yeah.
it's how does it feel to, come from a country coming from Venezuela to Lebanon when they're experiencing similar economic situations?
It was shocking, to be honest, and it was really, really hard to like. I was already getting through all this process of adapting to a new country, and then feeling like I was escaping that situation to enter a new similar one. It was kind of shocking to me.
Yeah.
But I feel like somehow Lebanon is way better to live in even in this situation than Venezuela right now. There are a lot of aspects. I guess one of them is that you feel safer. I remember that in Venezuela, I didn't feel a lot very safe. Um, there's a lot of insecurity. Caracas is really, really dangerous. And here, people are more of a, it's a small country, it's a small town I live in. So people are like creating this community in which everyone supports each other. They are always for each other. So you never see people going out of something like people in need. Like you don't really see people um, having to steal because they need to survive or something like that or kill someone. It's just it rarely happens. And right now things are changing. Like we are reaching the point in which we are resembling Venezuela so much that is still shocking to me. It's just I feel like history is repeating itself. I even wonder if like if I go to a third country, will it happen again? But yeah, I just hope things get better in both Venezuela and Lebanon. It's hard for a lot of people, and I feel grateful because it never really hurt me as much as other people is affecting their lives. So I'm grateful for that, but it's definitely shocking to know that
Yeah.
both are that bad
Yeah. So
and
like
so
I
many
said,
people is affected.
there's yeah, exactly. And there's and even people being affected in how it affects you in your art, that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in seeing, how it
Yeah.
can possibly affect you in like how you create, how you move around the world. And it's kind of like it's the reason why I'm having this conversation. There's like one thing I'm also very curious about because you said, people in Lebanon. I mean, obviously not everyone, but there's got to be some people, that are going to the extremes, like, doing stuff like stealing from others. But I know there is food insecurity. I know there is food insecurity in Lebanon right now, kind of like in Venezuela. Like there was food shortages
Mm.
and stuff, and like you have to rely on kind of like outside help from other countries in the black market.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
It's
yeah.
happening right now. That's what I'm saying, that it's starting to happen right now. But when I came here, it was totally different. Like I felt that in that aspect it was totally different. Now it's getting very similar to what is happening in Venezuela. And I was like, oh my God. So basically, the situation is what makes people go corrupt, you know? If your government teaches you to be corrupt, then people will start being corrupt and doing things that are morally not right because they need to survive. And maybe that's a view of life that not many people have, that they think that for example, in Venezuela, I used to hear a lot of bad things said about Venezuelans in general. So they start generalizing and stereotyping the whole population on based on what some people do. And it didn't happen here when I got to Lebanon, but then it is starting to happen now. It's starting to happen to the point in which if you are Lebanese and you want to go out of the country, many people won't receive you because they have this idea of Lebanese people, because of what's been happening out of the survival mode that everyone's going to. So yeah, that's what I mean, you
Yeah.
know.
I know you're very passionate about social injustice, fighting that. And also so am I. I am as well. And there was a post that I knew even without looking at your caption. I knew what you were talking about. I knew which post you were talking about. And by the way, I love that you put your passion for fighting certain social injustices into your other passion, which is writing and like illustrating. Because there was that post that says, on this day last year, we got our heart wounded and it's still bleeding. Sometimes we wonder if it will ever heal. And I am aware that this is about the Beirut explosion, correct? In August
Yeah.
August 4th, 2020. On August 4th, 2020, inside warehouse number 12 in the port of Beirut, capital city of Lebanon, 2,750 tons of unsafely stored ammonium nitrate set off a massive explosion. Its denotation occurred alongside other toxic chemicals. The aftermath left at least 217 people dead from the blast and more than 6,000 people injured. This event led tens of thousands of people to protest, wanting a restructuration of Lebanon's political system. Many people are hungry for change in Lebanon and blame the corruption of the government for the economic collapse and many other instabilities occurring in Lebanon right now. Um, that is your art being emphasizing that moment. And you said you live an hour away from Beirut, and I'm also aware that you even saw the effects of the explosion in that moment, like physically saw them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah,
know
I
that.
think that's a day that nobody will ever forget about, because I remember that I was outside, I was journaling in the garden, and then I saw it was like a sunset time, and I saw the beautiful sky, it was red. And but it was different, it was abnormal. Like everyone was like asking themselves why the sky looks like that, and we had no idea. uh, we were informed like an hour after everyone was like taking pictures of the sky, and it was beautiful. And what I thought it was a beautiful moment turned out to be a really, really sad thing that was happening so many like kilometers beyond where I was at the moment. And when I saw the news, I was shocked. I was really, really sad. Um, it was a crazy week. I tried to go and help. There were like people volunteering to go and clean the houses and the buildings and helping people out. I couldn't go. I had to work. But I have friends who went there and told me that it's just devastating. You see people wounded everywhere, the buildings, the houses, many people left homeless. It was really a nightmare. And it's so sad because it happened, it could have been prevented by the government if they really cared about its people. It would never have happened, which is so
Yeah.
sad.